it's been said like a parentheses. So far in Isaiah, we've been getting a lot of prophetic language, which is exciting. It's poetic. Sometimes it's hard to track, and I'll just be honest personally. Sometimes it just gets kind of heavy, and so I am not tired of it. I don't mean it to sound that way, but sometimes it's just like so much information that is kind of foreign. It's presented in a foreign way, that I'm looking forward to today, because we get a bit of a breather from that language, and actually it's more narrative for our reading today. We're learning about Hezekiah. So Isaiah is an old man, and Hezekiah is the king. And so we're reading Isaiah 36 through 39 today, and we really get the history, which actually we know, but maybe we'll get some new insight or a good reminder of it. And a few days ago, we learned about Shebna and what was it, Eliakim, and so some of the people that work with Hezekiah, some of the higher ups in that government, and I think we're going to learn more about those guys today. So I'll call to remembrance. Shebna was over the finances and over the house, and he was not a godly man. Hezekiah was, but one of his chief employees was not this Shebna, and he really angered God, because Isaiah is prophesying. He's saying, you guys are going into captivity. This is going to happen. And Shebna is arrogant, prideful, and he's kind of like, nah, I don't believe you. And so he pays for a big sepulcher to be made for himself. He thinks he's going to live forever or stay in Jerusalem. And anyway, so God basically lops off him. Remember the illustration of Shebna was like a fastened nail in a wall that he felt was so important, and everybody was hanging on him. Well, God lops him off and then puts in Eliakim in his spot. So I think we're going to get a bit of that history, but mostly it's focused on Hezekiah today. Hezekiah. So Isaiah 36 through 39 is our reading, and I hope you are looking forward to a day in God's house, whether you're watching that on live stream or if you're able to meet in person at the church and hear the preaching of the word, and to minister to each other in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, to minister to the Lord with those songs, to minister to the Lord with your giving. And man, what a privilege it is. I mean, there's so many cultures that forbid what we're able to do freely today. And so let's not take that for granted. Let's rejoice. This is the day that the Lord hath made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. All right, chapter 36. Now it came to pass in the 14th year of King Hezekiah that Sennacherib king of Assyria came up against all the defense cities of Judah and took them. And the king of Assyria sent Rabshakeh from Lachish to Jerusalem unto King Hezekiah with a great army. And he stood by the conduit of the upper pool in the highway of the fuller's field. I remember this. So we've got fighting words coming. So this Rabshakeh of Assyria is kind of out there with his army outside the walls, and they're going to say some stuff. Verse 3, Then came forth unto him Eliakim, Hilkiah's son. So we're going to learn a little bit about Eliakim. This is the guy who took over Shebna's spot that God put in his place, remember? And so it's interesting. All right, so Eliakim is going to have some words. Okay, so then came forth unto him Eliakim, Hilkiah's son, which was over the house, and Shebna the scribe, and Joah, Asaph's son, the recorder. Cool, a lot of famous people here. So Asaph was, I think that's a different Asaph. Never mind. I was thinking of David and Asaph, but this was way, way, way longer, so it couldn't have been his kid. So it must be a different Asaph. But so we've got Shebna, Joah, and Eliakim. So Shebna, bad guy. Eliakim, really good guy. Joah, no idea. Verse 4, And Rabshakeh said unto them, Say ye now to Hezekiah, Thus saith the great king, the king of Assyria, What confidence is this wherein thou trustest? I say, sayest thou, but they are but vain words. Okay, sorry. That was worded in a way that threw me off. Okay, so this is still Rabshakeh talking, and he's going to say what they are saying. So he's making fun of their words. I say, sayest thou, but they are but vain words. I have counsel and strength for war. Now on whom dost thou trust, that thou rebellest against me? Lo, thou trustest in the staff of this broken reed, on Egypt, whereon if a man lean, it will go into his hand and pierce it. So is Pharaoh king of Egypt to all that trust in him. All right, so if you remember, Israel has trusted in Egypt, and God was really upset about that. They went to Egypt for help. Everybody thinks Egypt's so powerful in this time. And Assyria is already declaring. Now, I'm not quite sure. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know yet if this king of Assyria, if Assyria has already taken Israel, but they're obviously very confident. They're in a conquering mood. Assyria is, and they are really winning. Everything they fight, they're winning. And so they're assuming that Judah has trusted in Egypt in verse 6. And so he's making fun of Egypt. Oh, Egypt's like a broken reed. If you lean on it, it's just going to poke you. So anyway, verse 7. But if thou say to me, we trust in the Lord our God. All right, so he doesn't quite know who they're trusting in, but he starts with Egypt. The Egypt won't work. And everybody's like, yeah, that's true. And then he's going to make fun of God. But if thou say to me, we trust in the Lord our God, is it not he whose high places and whose altars Hezekiah hath taken away, and said to Judah and to Jerusalem, ye shall worship before this altar? Now therefore give pledges, I pray thee, to my master the king of Assyria, and I will give thee 2,000 horses, if thou be able on thy part to set riders upon them. How then wilt thou turn away the face of one captain of the least of my master's servants, and put thy trust on Egypt for chariots and for horsemen? And am I now come up without the Lord against this land to destroy it? The Lord said unto me, go up against this land and destroy it. Oh, God has told me to come destroy you. Okay. Verse 11, Eliakim. Then said Eliakim and Shebna and Joah unto Rabshakeh, speak, I pray thee, unto thy servants in the Syrian language. All right, so they're trying some diplomatic approaches here. Don't talk in the language that everybody can understand. Talk in Assyrian language. We know that language. So they're trying to minimize the damage. For we understand it, and speak not unto us in the Jews' language, in the ears of the people that are on the wall. But Rabshakeh said, hath my master sent me to thy master, and to thee to speak these words? Hath he not sent me to the men that sit upon the wall, that they may eat their own dung and drink their own piss with you? Then Rabshakeh stood and cried with a loud voice in the Jews' language, and said, hear ye the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. Thus saith the king, let not Hezekiah deceive you, for he shall not be able to deliver you. Neither let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord, saying, the Lord will surely deliver us. This city shall not be delivered into the hand of the king of Assyria. Hearken not to Hezekiah, for thus saith the king of Assyria, make an agreement with me by a present, and come out to me. And eat ye every one of his vine, and every one of his fig tree, and drink ye every one the waters of his own cistern, until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land of corn and wine, a land of bread and vineyards. Beware lest Hezekiah persuade you, saying, the Lord will deliver us. Hath any of the gods of the nations delivered his land out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arphad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim? And have they delivered Samaria out of my hand? Who are they among all the gods of these lands that have delivered their land out of my hand, that the Lord should deliver Jerusalem out of my hand? But they held their peace and answered him not a word, for the king's commandment was, saying, answer him not. Then came Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, that was over the household, and Shebna the scribe, and Joah, the son of Asaph, the recorder, to Hezekiah with their clothes rent, and told him the words of Rabshakeh. All right. So bad guy Shebna, good guy Eliakim, and this other guy Joah that I don't know about. Everybody can agree this is bad news. Okay, so they are tearing their clothes. They come to the king, and they've got to tell him the bad news. Things are looking pretty bleak. Not good. chapter 37, it kind of reminds me of Goliath, right? He's like calling everybody out. He's yelling about how God isn't strong. And so let's see what happens. Chapter 37, and it came to pass when King Hezekiah heard it, that he rent his clothes and covered himself with sackcloth and went into the house of the Lord. A good response. And he sent Eliakim, who was over the household, and Shebna the scribe, and the elders of the priests covered with sackcloth, unto Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos. Okay, so Eliakim, Shebna, and the elders of the priests are all kind of this embassage, this convoy, all headed over to Isaiah, and they're going to talk to Isaiah to find out what to do. Verse 3. And they said unto him, Thus saith Hezekiah, This day is a day of trouble, and of rebuke, and of blasphemy. For the children are come to the birth, and there is not strength to bring forth. It may be the Lord thy God will hear the words of Rabshakeh, whom the king of Assyria his master hath sent to reproach the living God, and will reprove the words which the Lord thy God hath heard. Wherefore lift up thy prayer for the remnant that is left. So the servants of King Hezekiah came to Isaiah. So it's interesting. I'm just thinking of the social dynamics here. Shebna, Eliakim, and Joah. By this time, I'm assuming, because we're pretty late in Isaiah's ministry, old man Isaiah, Shebna would know probably by now the prophecy that God gave specifically about Shebna, that he's going to lose his job to Eliakim. And I'm not sure if I'm confident enough to say that that's already happened, but it is saying that Eliakim in verse 2 is over the household. And so it may be that switch has already taken place and Shebna has been shamed. I don't know. But either way, all these guys are running to Isaiah, and there's all of this social dynamic going on. And I wonder if this was hard for Shebna to go to Isaiah, but it seems that the situation is so bleak that they are just, and it even says in verse 4, they're talking to Isaiah, the Lord thy God. So he's not admitting that the Lord is his God, but he still is running to the prophet, hey, we need your help. We really need you today. So verse 5, so the servants of King Hezekiah came to Isaiah. And Isaiah said unto them, Thus shall ye say unto your master, Thus saith the Lord, Be not afraid of the words that thou hast heard, wherewith the servants of the king of Assyria have blasphemed me. Behold, I will send a blast upon him, and he shall hear a rumor and return to his own land, and I will cause him to fall by the sword in his own land. So Rabshakeh returned and found the king of Assyria warring against Libnah, for he had heard that he was departed from Lachish, and he heard say concerning Tirhakah, king of Ethiopia, He is come forth to make war with thee. And when he heard it, he sent messengers to Hezekiah, saying, Thus shall you speak to Hezekiah, king of Judah, saying, Let not thy God in whom thou trustest deceive thee, saying, Jerusalem shall not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. So basically, Rabshakeh has to take care. He's got bigger fish to fry, so he literally has to leave. After he's said all of these big, proud words, like, we're going to take you out, you might as well give up now. And then all of a sudden he gets wind that, something bigger is happening. I've got to go. I can't conquer Jerusalem because we've got to go help our friends. And so before he goes, he's got to throw some more words in. Don't feel like you've won. This war isn't over just yet. Verse 11. Behold, thou hast heard what the kings of Assyria have done to all lands by destroying them utterly. And shalt thou be delivered? Have the gods of the nations delivered them which my fathers have destroyed, as Gozan and Haran and Rezeph, and the children of Eden which were in Telassar? Which is the king of Hamath, and the king of Arphad, and the king of the city of Sepharvaim, Hena, and Iva? And Hezekiah received the letter from the hand of the messengers, and read it. And Hezekiah went up unto the house of the Lord, and spread it before the Lord. So he lays this letter out in front of God in the house of the Lord. And Hezekiah prayed unto the Lord, saying, O Lord of hosts, God of Israel, that dwellest between the cherubims, thou art the God, even thou alone. Of all the kingdoms of the earth, thou hast made heaven and earth. Incline thine ear, O Lord, and hear. Open thine eyes, O Lord, and see, and hear all the words of Sennacherib, which hath sent to reproach the living God. Of a truth, Lord, the kings of Assyria have laid waste all the nations and their countries. This is like a world war. Not really, but I mean, they are conquering nations, plural. Like, they're just really taking out a lot of nations. The Assyrian Empire is thickening and growing in its influence. Verse 19, and have cast their gods into the fire, for they were no gods, but the work of men's hands, wood and stone. Therefore they have destroyed them. Now therefore, O Lord our God, save us from his hand, that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that thou art the Lord, even thou only. Then Isaiah the son of Amoz sent unto Hezekiah, saying, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, whereas thou hast prayed to me against Sennacherib king of Assyria, this is the word which the Lord has spoken concerning him. The virgin, the daughter of Zion, hath despised thee, and laughed thee to scorn. The daughter of Jerusalem has shaken her head at thee. Whom hast thou reproached and blasphemed? And against whom hast thou exalted thy voice, and lifted up thine eyes on high, even against the Holy One of Israel? By thy servants hast thou reproached the Lord, and hast said, By the multitude of my chariots am I come up to the height of the mountains, to the sides of Lebanon, and I will cut down the tall cedars thereof, and the choice fir trees thereof, and I will enter into the height of his border, and the forest of his Carmel. I have digged and drunk water, and with the sole of my feet have I dried up all the river of the besieged places. Hast thou not heard long ago how I have done it, and of ancient times that I have formed it? Now have I brought it to pass that thou shouldest be laid to waste, defence cities into ruinous heaps. Therefore their inhabitants were of small power. They were dismayed and confounded. They were as the grass of the field, and as the green herb, as the grass on the housetops, and as corn blasted before it be grown up. But I know thy abode, and thy going out, and thy coming in, and thy rage against me. Because thy rage against me and thy tumult is come up into mine ears, therefore will I put my hook in thy nose, and my bridle in thy lips, and I will turn thee back by the way which thou camest. Right? God is saying, I am going to put a hook in your nose, and I will do with you what I want, and I'm going to send you home. Verse 30, and this shall be a sign unto thee. Ye shall eat this year such as groweth of itself, and the second year that which springeth of the same. And in the third year sow ye, and reap, and plant vineyards, and eat the fruit thereof. And the remnant that is escaped of the house of Judah shall again take root downward, and bear fruit upward. For out of Jerusalem shall go forth a remnant, and they that escape out of Mount Zion, the zeal of the Lord of hosts shall do this. Therefore thus saith the Lord concerning the king of Assyria, He shall not come into this city, nor shoot an arrow there, nor come before it with shields, nor cast a bank against it. By the way that he came, by the same shall he return, and shall not come into this city, saith the Lord. For I will defend this city to save it for mine own sake, and for my servant David's sake. Wow. Then the angel of the Lord that went forth and smote in the camp of the Assyrians 185,000. 185,000 Assyrians, the angel of the Lord. Just another reminder that angels are not these little precious moments, little pendants that we imagine and that top our Christmas trees. The angels of the Lord, man, you don't mess with them. You remember David and his sin of counting the people, and God sends the plague by way of that angel who's just taking people out left and right. And David is just like fearfully standing in front of this angel, unable to look up at the threshing floor of Ornan, and he's making sacrifice to God, and the angel's there with like the flaming sword. And anyway, that's kind of what I've got in my mind, this Assyrian army that's taking out all the armies of the world. And they have lost 185,000 murderous soldiers to one angel. Just one. Wow. And when they arose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead corpses. Sorry. My grandma, she's from Arkansas. We call her Granny. Granny, she might be watching. Granny, you might be watching today. I don't remember the context, but it just seems like you always, I heard you say all the time, one day you're going to wake up dead, you know. They woke up dead that day. And anyway, it's just kind of a funny thought that when they rose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead corpses. Verse 37, so Sennacherib, king of Assyria, departed and went and returned and dwelt at Nineveh. Seems like a safe place for Assyrians. Oh, is Nineveh in Assyria? I think it might be. I don't know. That just pinged a thought. Nineveh. So quick history of Nineveh. Nineveh, we mostly think of Jonah. And Jonah, let's see. I wonder when Jonah was... Will we have Jonah in... Yeah, we'll have Jonah here. Let's learn about Jonah. I've got my handy-dandy chart here. Where is Jonah? Jonah... Okay, so Jonah is in Israel. And he ministers alongside of Amos, Hosea, and Micah. All four of those guys at the same time. And during the same time period of Isaiah. Am I reading that right? 7, yep. Okay, so you've got all these prophets alive all at the same time. Isaiah, Micah, Jonah, Hosea, and Amos, all ministering during the reigns of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah in Judah, and then all of these kings in Israel. Jeroboam II, Zechariah, Shallum, Menahem, Pekahiah, and Pekah. All right, so all these guys, all of those kings are so evil. They're the ones that are making pacts with Egypt and all of that. Okay, so Jonah is alive. He may have met Isaiah, or anyway, they're ministering during the same time frame, okay? So think of all that's going on. Okay, you know that Nineveh was bad, but this is going to give us a more broad view of how bad Nineveh was, okay? When God told, man, this is mind-blowing, right? When God tells Jonah, I want you to go to Nineveh and preach to them so that they will turn and turn from their sin and serve me. So this is where wicked kings go for refuge. This is where Assyrian Sennacherib goes with his tail tucked between his legs when the angel of the Lord has beat him up. 185,000 men die, and so the rest of them who hate God, they hate Judah, they hate Israel, they go to Nineveh for refuge. That's how bad Nineveh is it's the place where bad guys go to heal and to lick their wounds. I mean, it is a safe place for bad guys. And when God tells Jonah, I mean, maybe he hangs out with Isaiah and Amos and Hosea and Micah, and Jonah's like, why me? Why me? Could you not have sent Isaiah? Could you not, why not Amos? Could you send anybody else? Why do I have to go to Nineveh? He was probably fearing for his life, and he was we know for a fact, he just didn't want them to get saved. He didn't want them to know God. So this gives us a kind of more context, all right? So Nineveh was a place that hated God, hated Israel, and hated Judah. And so this is where Sennacherib is running to Nineveh, of all places. I've lost my place. Oh, we were in verse 37. Verse 38, and it came to pass, as he was worshiping in the house of Nisroch his god, there in Nineveh, worshiping to Nisroch and this pagan god temple or whatever, that Adramelech the Sharezer, and Sharezer his sons, okay, his kids come in and kill him, smote him with the sword, and they escaped into the land of Armenia. And Esarhaddon, his son, reigned in his stead. I remember that happening back in Chronicles or wherever we read it. So a lot of times if a king lost a battle, I mean, basically everybody lost faith in him. He lost his credibility, which is why he's worshiping to a god. He's trying to get some help, And while he's doing it, his own flesh and blood, his kids come in and kill him. So pagan, so godless, so wrong, and crazy stuff. All right, so chapter 38, I think we kind of switch gears from that storyline, and we're in that story of Hezekiah's sickness. In those days was Hezekiah sick unto death, and Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, came unto him, and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Set thine house in order, for thou shalt die and not live. I don't believe this is judgment. I believe that this is just the course of life for Hezekiah. For whatever reason, God has allowed him to become sick, and God just tells him, yeah, this is going to be it for you. He's gracious in letting him know ahead of time. Okay, you're not going to recover from this. You will die. And knowing that he's a man of God, he's going to go to heaven when he dies. But he doesn't necessarily love this news. Thou shalt die and not live. Verse 2, Then Hezekiah turned his face toward the wall and prayed unto the Lord, and said, Remember now, O Lord, I beseech thee, how I have walked before thee in truth and with a perfect heart, and have done that which is good in thy sight. And Hezekiah wept sore. He is begging God for more time. And he's weeping. And I think he's weeping for his own life. I've heard people kind of make fun of him for this. I think you'd weep too. I'd weep too. He just has more life left in him. At least he wants, he's not ready to go. He wants to continue life. He has things he wants to do. And I don't know how old he was, but he's not ready to go yet in his mind. Verse 4, Then came the word of the Lord to Isaiah, saying, Go and say to Hezekiah, Thus saith the Lord, the God of David thy father, I have heard thy prayer, and I have seen thy tears. Behold, I will add unto thy days 15 years. So his tears were not selfish. They weren't silly or fleshly. They were sincere, and God takes notice of that. And I'm of the belief, I know that it gets confusing. It's so confusing for us. It's so hard for us to understand God's sovereignty. It's so hard for us to really comprehend the fact that he knows everything, past, present, and future. And so God announces ahead of time to Hezekiah, you're going to die, knowing that Hezekiah is going to pray, and God knowing that he's going to respond. And a lot of times when we're given a look underneath the dashboard of God's working like this, we're shown this whole scenario. And I believe that a lot of times when God shows us under the dashboard, he's trying to give us a peek toward his nature. And though Hezekiah was going to die, God shows us that he would have died apart from this prayer. This prayer was effectual, this prayer was fervent, and this prayer availeth much, right? The effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. I believe that God shows us this peek underneath the hood to show us, hey, look, prayer matters. If it wasn't for Hezekiah's prayer, then Hezekiah would have been a dead man. But instead, he prayed and he wept, and he that soweth in tears shall reap in joy. And so God says, okay, because I've seen your tears and I've heard your prayer, 15 years to you, man. Another prayer was happening during this time. And I'd be curious to know the timeline of all of this. But Jonah, as he's sent to Nineveh, instead of going to Nineveh, where does he go? The other way to Tarshish, and he's in the ship. The storm started. I saw a funny meme. I think maybe Tanya posted this. I can't remember. Somebody posted it. A funny meme that said something like, in regards to all the events of 2020, all right, whoever's supposed to go to Nineveh, just go already. It feels like all of this. Man, who's not obeying God? We need to throw them overboard so we can have some sort of, healing here. But anyway, he gets 15 years. Verse 6, And I will deliver thee and this city out of the hand of the king of Assyria, and I will defend this city. And this shall be a sign unto thee from the Lord, that the Lord will do this thing that he has spoken. Behold, I will bring again the shadow of the degrees, which is gone down in the sundial of Ahaz, 10 degrees backward. So the sun returned 10 degrees, by which degrees it was gone down. So God literally goes backwards in time just to prove to Hezekiah, hey, you're going to heal and you're going to have 15 more years of life. That was very gracious of God to do that. Verse 9, the writing of Hezekiah, king of Judah, when he had been sick and was recovered of his sickness. All right, so kind of like what we were talking about last Sunday, when God reveals himself and gives fresh glory, fresh grace, fresh praise is almost every time the response of his people. And so Hezekiah gets his pen out and starts to write in verse 10. I said in the cutting off of my days, I shall go to the gates of the grave. I am deprived of the residue of my years. I said, I shall not see the Lord, even the Lord in the land of the living. I shall behold man no more with the inhabitants of the world. Mine age is departed and is removed from me as a shepherd's tent. I have cut off like a weaver in my life. He will cut me off with pining sickness. From day even to night wilt thou make an end of me. I reckon till morning that as a lion, so will he break all my bones. From day even to night wilt thou make an end of me. Like a crane or a swallow, so did I chatter. I did mourn as a dove. Mine eyes fail with looking upward. O Lord, I am oppressed. Undertake for me. What shall I say? He hath both spoken unto me, and himself hath done it. I shall go softly all my years in the bitterness of my soul. O Lord, by these things men live, and in these things is the life of my spirit. So wilt thou recover me and make me to live. Behold, for peace I had great bitterness, but thou hast in love to my soul delivered it from the pit of corruption. For thou hast cast all my sins behind thy back. For the grave cannot praise thee, death cannot celebrate thee. They that go down into the pit cannot hope for thy truth. The living, he shall praise thee, as I do this day. The Father to the children shall make known thy truth. The Lord was ready to save me. Therefore will we will sing my songs to the stringed instruments all the days of our life in the house of the Lord. For Isaiah had said, let them take a lump of figs and lay it for a plaster upon the boil, and he shall recover. Oh, so Isaiah prescribes the medicine. So they take a lump of figs and they make like a paste out of it, and they put it on this boil that was going to kill him. So probably like an infection that would go viral in his body and then end up killing him. And he shall recover. Verse 22, Hezekiah also had said, what is the sign that I shall go up to the house of the Lord? Wow, pretty awesome. I'm crunched for time, so I need to keep on reading. Chapter 39, at that time, Merodach Baladan, the son of Baladan, king of Babylon. I hate this story. Sent letters and a present to Hezekiah. Hezekiah, come on, man. He's a good guy. He was a good guy. He was well-meaning, good guy. And we just read that awesome prayer of his. But he was gullible. Like, he knew all the prophecies of Isaiah about Babylon. Yet, here we go. So, the son of Baladan, king of Babylon, so the prince of Babylon, sent letters and a present to Hezekiah, for he had heard that he had been sick and was recovered. Oh, isn't that nice? And Hezekiah was glad of them, and showed them the house of his precious things, the silver and the gold, and the spices and the precious ointment, and all the house of his armor, and all that was found in his treasures. There was nothing in his house, nor in all his dominion, that Hezekiah showed them not. Then came Isaiah the prophet unto King Hezekiah, and said unto him, what said these men, and from whence came they unto thee? And Hezekiah said, they are come from a far country unto me, even from Babylon. Then said he, what have they seen in thine house? And Hezekiah answered, all that is in mine house have they seen. There is nothing among my treasures that I have not showed them. Then said Isaiah to Hezekiah, hear the word of the Lord of hosts. Behold, the days come that all that is in thine house, and that which thy fathers had laid up in store until this day, shall be carried to Babylon. Nothing shall be left, saith the Lord. And of thy sons that shall issue from thee, which thou shalt beget, shall they take away, and they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. That happened to Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So same sort of stuff going on. Verse 8, then said Hezekiah to Isaiah, good is the word of the Lord which thou hast spoken. He said, moreover, for there shall be peace and truth in my days. All right, man. Well, at least I will live in peace. All right. I think he's actually being grateful for the measure of mercy that God is giving him. At least God is going to give us some peace until I die. So he's kind of cutting his losses and saying, he's looking at the bright side. All right, at least we still have some years, but foolish move, Hezekiah. All right, guys, I need to go, so let's pray, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Lord, thank you for your word, and I pray that we would be discerning. Thank you for the example of Hezekiah's beautiful prayer life. Sorry. Lord, may we run to you in our times of trouble. And then, Lord, I pray that you'd help us to be wise and discerning. I just think again about Hezekiah's mistake that he made, how gullible he was. And a lot of times, Lord, we are not discerning. I pray for wisdom for our church, for discernment, that we would be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.